At 73 years old, Sharon Osbourne sits in a quiet room, the noise finally turned down. No flashing cameras, no screaming crowds, no backstage chaos, just silence. And in that silence lives a lifetime of battles the public never fully saw. Because behind the sharp wit, the diamond rings, and the unapologetic confidence, there has always been a woman fighting to survive. But how did the girl who once felt invisible become one of the most recognizable women in entertainment? And why does her story feel more tragic now than ever before? To understand Sharon at 73, you have to go back to the beginning. Long before the red carpets and reality television, she was just a daughter trying to earn love from a father who seemed impossible to please. Her father, Don Arden, was a powerful and feared music manager in the British rock scene. He built empires, he intimidated rivals, he controlled artists with an iron grip. But at home, that same intensity casts a long shadow. Imagine a young girl watching larger-than-life musicians walk through her living room. Sensing the power in the air but feeling powerless herself, Sharon grew up surrounded by fame, yet starved of affection. She learned early that love was conditional, approval was rare, and strength was not optional. And maybe that's where the armor began. Years later, that same young girl would meet a wild, unpredictable singer who had just been fired from one of the biggest bands in the world. Ozzy Osbourne had been dismissed from Black Sabbath. His reputation was spiraling. The addiction was tightening its grip. Many believed his career was over. But Sharon didn't see a lost cause. She saw potential against her father's wishes. And at enormous personal risk, she chose Ozzy. She became his manager, his protector, his strategist. She fought for him when others wouldn't. She negotiated contracts. She rebuilt his image. She stood in boardrooms full of men who underestimated her, and she refused to back down. And slowly, against all odds, Ozzy rose again. What began as business became love. What began as chaos became a family. They married, they had children, and for a moment, it seemed like Sharon had built the stability she never had as a child. But stability in the Osbourne world has always been fragile. Addiction doesn't disappear. Just because someone loves you, and loving someone battling addiction can feel like standing in the path of a storm again and again and again. There were nights of fear, nights of uncertainty, moments when the fairy tale cracked. Sharon has spoken openly about the betrayals, the relapses, the unbearable weight of holding everything together. Can you imagine what it feels like to be the strong one every single time? To carry a family's future on your shoulders while pretending you're not breaking? Then came a new chapter, no one expected. In the early 2000s, cameras entered their home. The Osbournes changed television forever. Viewers saw a chaotic, funny, surprisingly relatable family. They laughed at Ozzy's confusion. They watched their children grow up, and Sharon, sharp-tongued, fiercely protective. Camonte became a star in her own right. But reality television is a strange mirror. It magnifies everything. The good, the bad, the cracks. Behind the humor were real struggles. Fame inside your own living room. Private pain turned into public entertainment. And yet, Sharon thrived in the spotlight. She wasn't just a rock wife anymore. She was a personality, a judge, a host, a force. Her time on The X Factor solidified her as a household name in the UK. Later, on The Talk, she brought that same boldness to American audiences. She spoke her mind. She defended her family. She built a brand on authenticity, even when it made her controversial. But what does it cost to always be the strongest voice in the room? In 2002, life delivered a blow no amount of confidence could deflect. Sharon was diagnosed with colon cancer. Doctors gave her daunting odds. The word cancer has a way of shrinking everything else. The fame, the money, the arguments. Suddenly, survival becomes the only headline that matters. Picture her sitting in a hospital room, stripped of makeup, stripped of the persona, facing mortality not as a manager or a television star, but as a mother. What do you say to your children in that moment? How do you reassure them when you're terrified yourself? She fought, she endured surgery, she endured treatment, and she survived. The public saw strength. Headlines praised her resilience. But survival leaves scars, physical and emotional. When you confront death and walk away, something changes. The world never looks quite the same. As the years passed, Sharon continued to reinvent herself. But reinvention can sometimes mask deeper struggles. She has been candid about cosmetic surgeries, some she regrets. In a culture obsessed with youth, especially for women in television, the pressure is relentless. Stay relevant. Stay beautiful. Stay desirable. That's 73. How heavy does that pressure feel? In recent years, her departure from The Talk became a media storm. A heated honor exchange led to accusations, debates, and intense scrutiny. Overnight, the woman who built a career on speaking her mind found herself at the center of controversy. For someone who has always prided herself on loyalty, especially to her friends and family, the fallout cut deep. She insisted she felt misunderstood. She spoke about feeling blindsided. And for the first time in decades, Sharon wasn't fighting for Ozzy's career or her children's futures. She was fighting for her own name. What happens when the world that once applauded your blunt honesty suddenly turns against you? When the spotlight that empowered you begins to burn. Meanwhile, Ozzy's health struggles have intensified in recent years. Multiple surgeries, public acknowledgments of Parkinson's disease, tours canceled, a legend facing physical decline, and Sharon, once again, stands beside him. But time changes the stakes. They are no longer the rebellious couple defying the industry. They are grandparents. They are survivors of decades. Most marriages would not withstand. Love, at this stage, is quieter, more fragile, more precious. There is something haunting about watching icons age. We remember them as larger than life, untouchable, immortal. But at 73, Sharon Osbourne is undeniably human. She has buried friends. She has weathered scandals. She has faced illness. She has navigated betrayals, both personal and public. And still, she wakes up each day choosing to fight. In interviews, you can sometimes catch it a flicker behind the sharp humor, a softness when she speaks about her children, a weariness when she reflects on the past. The bravado is still there, but so is reflection. Was it worth it? The battles with her father, the risk she took on Ozzy, the cameras inside her home, the arguments played out on live television, the surgeries, the controversies. Or was it simply the only way she knew how to survive? At 73, tragedy doesn't always look like a single catastrophic event. Sometimes it's cumulative. 1,000 small cuts, a lifetime of having to be strong, a public image so powerful that people forget there's a person underneath. Sharon Osbourne's story isn't just about fame. It's about endure. It's about a woman who refused to be controlled by her father's shadow, who refused to let her husband self-destruct, who refused to let a cancer diagnosis define her, who refused to quietly fade away. But strength comes at a cost. And perhaps the most heartbreaking part isn't the scandals or the illness. It's the realization that even the fiercest fighters grow tired. Even the loudest voices long for peace. Even the strongest women sometimes want to put down the armor they've carried since childhood. So when you see Sharon Osbourne now older, reflective, still defiant, what do you see? A controversial television personality, a rock legend's wife, a reality TV pioneer, or a little girl who once stood in the shadow of a powerful father, determined to never feel powerless again. At 73, her story feels less like a tabloid headline and more like a testament, a reminder that resilience is rarely pretty, that survival is messy, that love can be both a lifeline and a burden. And maybe the real tragedy isn't that Sharon Osbourne endured so much. Maybe it's that she had to be this strong in the first place.